Hello everyone, Alex here again with another image review session. Not a ton of images again this week, and a mixture of pictures taken this year. There's one from Cayman, a bunch from Iceland, some from Lembe, and a few more from Tibetaha. Oh, and there's a random old one from Norway, actually. These are pictures that I've just had to process for different reasons, actually primarily for the big switch talk I did last week. I was processing these out just to have a few more additional images from the mirrorless cameras to show in that talk. So that's kind of where most of these have come from. I've been quite busy the last few weeks, so I haven't had much time for processing. But there's 28 here, so I thought it was worth a run through. Right, let me pull up the stuff on the side so you can see the camera settings as I go through these. Where there they are at the bottom. So the majority of these are shot on... Oh no, there's a mixture. So they're shot on mostly on Sony mirrorless, but there are a few shot with the Nikon D850, particularly some of the EMWL shots from Lembe. And I've no idea what this old picture was taken on a D700. There we go. Right. So actually, the first shot is shot with a Sony A7R5 in Cayman, and it's just a inward lighting brown tube sponge. One of the projects I wanted to do this year was to do a big review of all the different lighting accessories for the retro flashes. And I've taken a number of pictures both in Lembe and Cayman using the different accessories to demonstrate what they're very useful for. But I haven't actually had a chance to do anything with them yet in terms of the writing. I'm just a bit overrun at the moment with work. But one day that will appear, and these are examples for it. And this is an inward lighting shot with, I'm going to have to check the EXIF to tell you whether it's shot with the reflectors or with the beam restrictors. Is it still in the EXIF? Gosh, it's hard to read like this. I don't even see a note about it, so I can't tell you. But anyway, it's an inward lighting shot using either reflectors or beam restrictors of this brown tube sponge in the Cayman Islands. I now need to get this back to the right place so you can read the camera settings. Shot with the Canon 8-15 at 14mm here. I must have had the zoom on at 14mm, so not quite at 15mm. And shot at f13, ISO 320, 1/50th of a second. I think generally when I had the A7R5, I was shooting it at a slightly lower ISO than I do with the A1. I think the A7R5, maybe without the stack sensor, has probably got a slightly better low ISO image quality and gets a bit noisier as well as you wind the ISO up. So when I'm using that camera, I'll generally run a slightly lower ISO, just a few clicks, you know. I'd say I'd probably shoot a wide angle reef scene on the A1 at ISO 400-500 and on the A7R5 at 250, 320, 400. So it's kind of an overlapping range. Right, the next picture is a duck. It's a male tufted duck for those who are interested. And this is a picture I processed for my talk, The Big Switch, just to show that all the fancy features of mirrorless cameras like the subject tracking work with adapted lenses of other companies. So this is shot with the Sony A1 with subject selection bird tracking on, and it will focus on the eye of the bird very reliably, as you can see there. And this picture here was taken using a Nikon, the Nikon lightweight, is it f6.7 500mm, so not a particularly high quality lens, but even that works brilliantly, focuses super fast with the cameras, and that was just one for it was 500 f5.6 lens, and that was one that lens I still really like and still really like using on the Sony because it's small and light to carry around the Nikon lens, and it works really well with it. So it's a very nice telephoto to use. It's actually the main reason I've not bought a 200-600 Sony yet. And also the fact that I don't shoot a lot of topside. Right, I'm waffling on a bit today. Right, let's crack on into some underwater pictures. These are photos from Iceland. This is taken with the 8-15mm on the Sony A1. I was very happy with the ISO performance. That's ISO 3200. And yeah, ISO 3200 has got some noise in it. You can see the noise. I could run the noise reduction, but my particular agent asks us not to use noise reduction. They'd much rather have a slightly noisy file come in than a photographer over noise reduce a picture to the point that a client can't use it. Most clients of photography also know how to use noise reduction, so they'd much rather have a picture much closer to the original file. I have to say I've not played around with the new AI noise reduction in the in Photoshop yet, or in Lightroom and in Adobe Camera Raw in Lightroom. And I considered using it for these because I think it does do a really nice job. But generally, I was just so impressed by how clean the shots are from the Sony A1 at such a ridiculously high ISO. There's Byron posing. I like this shot. So these are all in Silfra with Byron modelling. It was very dark, which was quite nice actually, because it means that the torch has a much bigger impact on the pictures. So when it was dark, it was a chance to use the big torch and get some torch shots in Silfra. I'd love to go there again in the winter sometime and do a lot of night photography in there. I think that'd be a lot of fun. But yeah, these were just taken in the daytime with the torch. Just nice images showing the chasm, the fissure between the two tectonic plates that's filled with fresh water, and Byron there enjoying swimming through it. This is Catherine Arendt, one of my good photo buddies, who was part of the group of us diving in Silfra on that trip. And this is just a fun shot for her. This is a classic shot that people get as a tourist shot when diving in Silfra. Is at the beginning of the Silfra fissure, there's a very narrow area where you can actually reach across between the two tectonic plates, and it's a classic spot that people stop and get their photo taken. So I said to Catherine that I'd jump in with their group, do shots of her in here which she wanted, and then wait for my group to come in afterwards, which meant I did a longer dive, and I was really cold at the end of this one, because I basically did an extra sort of 20 minutes doing this at the beginning. But other than that, it's just shot with ISO 1600 on the 8-15 on the ISO Alpha one. This is probably a good one to look at the noise levels from the Alpha. You know, there's noise in there, but we're looking right in 200% on a 50 megapixel file. I should have said that before when we were zooming in on the noise, and it's it's super clean, lovely detail, really impressive image quality, color at those higher ISOs. One of Byron. Taken on the same dive because I only took strobes in once at Silfra. So Nikon 8-15 lens on the Sony Alpha 1, f13, ISO 1600. Need to shoot with these more closed apertures down in Silfra because you want the rocks on the side to be sharp. You want the rocks in the background to be sharp. So you can't get away with f11, f8. You just won't get the corner sharpness, won't get the background sharp. And you want to take your biggest, bestest dome in there as well to help all those things to get that image quality. And yeah, just a magazine-y shot. I quite like this different look with a much bluer canyon. When you shoot available light, you tend to get the colours of the rocks more. And then with the flash, you can put the flash on the diver. The picture is obviously a much cooler processed picture because you've got flash in it. And the rocks stay blue, which is gives a different look. Nice for an article, mixes up the colours. This is a classic end of Silfra in the cathedral area with some cathedral light coming in. I think I prefer this scene when it's bright but not quite as hardcore sunny as this. I think the sun kind of a little bit stops you seeing the rock formation as much as when it's a slightly flatter light. But it's really lovely to have those beautiful beams. It's very, very beautiful when it's like this. It's a rare topside picture from me from Iceland. This is a fulmar, which is an North Atlantic and North Pacific albatross. They've got that funnel nose, that funnel on top of their nose. I don't think we're going to be able to zoom in and see the funnel on top of its nose in this picture. Maybe just about. But obviously the attraction of this picture was the fact that the fulmars were soaring through the waterfall's rainbow, or waterfall bow. I'm not quite sure what you call a rainbow not created by rain. But it's and I just felt it was a really nice picture. I wanted to process out. Right, back underwater again. Now we're moving to Lembe, and most of the macro shots here, they're a mixture. This is shot with the D850, just a mantis with eggs. Most of the time when I've shot mantis with eggs, the mantis are in their burrow, and it's nice to get the chance to get this female there holding her eggs. And she was running around outside the burrow, which is why I processed this one out. It's a nice shot. I do think that these shots are better when it's all about that head and face. I think, the central part of this image is really where all the good stuff is. This is the good part of this image. But it was quite nice to be able to have the whole animal in a shot. So if I had, I wouldn't necessarily process this out if I hadn't already got lots of shots of just head of mantis shrimp, because I think that head with all the great colours on the head and around them, and then the red of the eggs, if that's the whole image, it's a stronger image. But I like the fact this tells a slightly bigger story, shows what the animal looks like too, as a good variation shot. Right, this is an ocelot frogfish. It's one of the undescribed species of frogfish that they think that there's usually a pair or two of these around in Lembe. This was the larger female of this pair. She had a nice yellow colour. They were much shyer than painted frogfish, staying more hidden in the reef, and that's kind of part of their behaviour. You can't really see she's an ocelot frogfish because you can't see the eye spot on her body in this one. But I know from other photos what she was. A tomato anemone fish. These you don't tend to see much diving in Lembe. They tend to be just up in the shallows on certain sites, but they're always very nice to see. And because they're in the shallows, you don't often get them with balled up anemones. That's why I like this picture, because it was a nice chance to have a tomato clownfish with a balled up anemone. So slightly different combination of subject matter. There's a big colony of these actually at Batu Angus in Lembe, where there's hundreds of them. And they're all in really bad condition because I think they're always fighting and arguing with each other. A random blackwater shot. This is a soapfish just with his mouth open. And then some EMWL shots. This one here is a photo of a saddleback anemone fish which is guarding its eggs. So the anemone is behind. And obviously, anemone fish can't lay their eggs on an anemone. They can't lay their eggs on the sand because it's not a hard substrate. So saddleback anemones pull objects close to their anemone to lay their eggs on. And this one here is laid its eggs on a coconut husk. And they're about halfway through their development, and it's guarding them here, and you can see the others behind. So I like this little story. What I don't like about this shot is I've shot this on front curtain sync, I think. And as a result, I've got this line of blur, which you always get with an anemone fish if you do longer exposures of them. But if I'd used rear curtain flash sync, that blur would have gone the other way in the picture. Or maybe I was using rear curtain flash sync and the anemone fish was swimming the wrong way. I'm not sure, because I would normally shoot rear curtain. But yeah, just a comment. And with an anemone fish, if you're doing longer exposure, whether it's wide angle or whether it's macro, always use that rear curtain sync, because these white bands are the brightest thing in the ocean, and they always create ghosting as a result. Right, this is sometimes when you see damselfish, you can see exactly how an anemone fish evolved from damselfish, and this is a damselfish guarding its eggs, and this black-barred damselfish, which are common on Lembe, in Lembe. And they like to nest in holes in things, and an old tin can is an ideal place for it to nest. You can just about see the eggs in behind here, just that texture behind the anemone fish. This is shot with the EMWL and the 160 lens. Really nice, sharp, great detail, and obviously such a fantastic perspective to really take you into the life of these animals. And actually taken very nearby, probably on the same dive. I think all three of these might have been from the same dive. This is the Matoti octopus coming out of its house. It was living in this bamboo pipe, and it would if you stayed still, it would come out and investigate and run around, and you get the chance for photos, which I really liked. Right, and another macro critter. This is also shot with the D850 with the SMC1 I would have used for this, and I really like coral hermits, which are hermit crabs that, rather than running around, live very small, but they live in holes in the reef, and they just filter the water with their appendages, living in their holes. And I've always loved them as subjects. They've got these amazing sparkly eyes. I photographed them. They're not rare subjects. You can find them on coral reefs across the Indo-Pacific, and I love their sparkly eyes. I love how they look, and I'm always very keen on photographing these guys whenever I get the chance. It takes, they're small, and nailing the focus on the eyes does take a bit of effort. But apart from that, they're a relatively easy subject to photograph, and always a favourite macro. I'll always shoot these when they're around. This shot I like. This is lit with a backscatter mini flash, mini flash 2, and there were these 3 cardinal fish living in a bottle, and they were super cute. I'm not quite sure what species they are, but they were really cute. So it's a really cool picture. And I have a really nice shot with just 2 of them in, which is on the to process list. There's still, I think, something like 200 high priority processing images from Lembe that I need to get to at some point this year, because there's just too much good stuff from a big long trip in Lembe. This is a flying squid. What is it called? A purple wing flying squid. I can't remember the name of them. But yeah, it's a common flying squid you see on a lot of black water dives. Not a particularly interesting shot or subject. It was shot on one of the dives I did, the Blackwater dives I did with the Sony A1, and I needed a few more A1 pictures for my talk, my mirrorless talk, so that's why it got processed out. This is another D850 shot of this gang of morays with their cleaner shrimps living in this tube, which was a great setup. I never quite got the composition I wanted from the morays. There was always be one or two of them not in quite the right position. But this one I like. It's got all four eyes visible. I quite like that you can only see one eye from each moray. And obviously the two purple shrimps up the top there, if you've seen them. Two cleaning shrimps at the top. Right. Moving on. A image of the Coleman shrimps. This is a pair, one of the favourite pairs I've found to photograph. So I really like the size difference between the male and the female. The male is the small one, the female is the big one. This is a particularly small male. The male will grow to be almost as big as this female. But I really like this pair, and I especially like the environment around them with just so much colour and detail and texture. Not an original picture. You know, I've been shooting Coleman shrimp like this for decades, and I know many other people were before me. But it's just such a pleasing underwater picture when I think, and it's always for me, you don't always have Coleman shrimps around. There seems to be plenty around, both in Lembe and the Philippines, but I promise you, and in Bali, but I promise you in 3 or 4 years' time, there won't be Coleman shrimps anywhere. They'll be gone for a few years, and we'll all be, enjoying the fact that we got these images when we had the chance. Another Shaun the Sheep. This one it's kind of, this one I processed this one because it's kind of had a really weird pigmentation. It was much yellower than other ones. It's a darker pigmented Shaun the Sheep nudie, but it's a very light version of the dark nudie. So I quite like this mix of colours this one had. So he got processed out. There are actually 2 of them here. You can see just at the bottom of the frame. There's another one, which this is slightly cropped for the processing, and I've cropped him out. And I do have one where because he was coming towards me, where he catches up to that one, and they're both in the frame. But it's not quite as nice on either of them as this one is. But I might process that one out soon as well, so I do like it. Right, jumping back in time to 2010. This is a photo of us up in Norway for one of the underwater photography workshops up there. Happy times. Dressed in our Norwegian stuff, and I processed this one out because Lars, who's on the left there, we did a live show on Facebook talking about green water photography, and so I thought I'd find some old embarrassing pictures of both of us from when we were younger. Right, this is now into Tibetaha. I still haven't really gone through these pictures properly, but I needed a few more shots for my talk, so I processed out a few more. This is a sea fan shot with a couple of the dive group swimming past. A scene with sea fans and Sinularia soft leather corals at the top there. A group of yellow spot sea bream, the Nathodentex emperors. We call them sea breams, but they're related to the emperors. There's only one species in this. They're quite a very widespread fish. You see them all the time, but there's only one species apparently in the genus, which is quite unusual. And you see them all across the Indo-Pacific, and certainly they're very common in the Maldives, and they're very common across Indonesia and out to the Philippines on the reefs. They're just kind of one of those general reef fish. I always feel with these, you get lots of them when you're on good dive sites. I think they like a bit of current, like a bit of water movement, and you seem to get lots of these guys. So that was a good sign of a good dive site. A barrel sponge with a school of jacks behind and lots of Philippine chromis filling the water. It's another Tibetaha shot, very classic Tibetaha scenery. Oh, and that's the end of those shots. And then the final shot is a photograph of me in the swimming pool this week, taken here in England, in the local pool, which is actually so close to my house I could walk there in diving equipment, although I might grab a few funny looks. as I cross the bridge over the river to where the swimming pool is. But thank you to Peterborough Aqua Club for letting me join their training session. And I joined the training session to test the new Fisheye converter port, which is still at prototype phase, which is being made by Nauticam. And it's similar to their wide angle corrector port, the WACP, but the FCP is designed to turn the lens not just into a wide angle lens, but to turn your land lens into a fisheye lens that's corrected for underwater use. So it gives you the ability to have a really good zoom range with a fisheye lens, and a fisheye lens that is corrected for underwater use. So it will be really sharp and also really good in the corners. And I think that's a really exciting development. And I took it to the pool because I'm going to take it onto the Red Sea, and I wanted just to make sure that the lens was performing properly before I pack it to go to the Red Sea, and don't take my normal fisheye lens in my luggage. I wanted to, obviously didn't want to get there and find I didn't like how it was performing. But I thought it was really impressive and very sharp. And this selfie of me taken with a fisheye, if I zoom in to my eye, you'll see how sharp it is. And I think those of you who've got fisheye lenses, you can look at your own pictures and see if they're really giving this much detail when you zoom into them, because I think that is a very impressive amount of detail for an underwater photo taken with a fisheye lens, to be able to zoom in and fill the screen. And obviously, if you're watching this on YouTube, put it full screen on your laptop or tablet. Make sure you're watching the highest quality version of it, and you can really see the detail of this that the FCP produces. So it's very exciting to have that high quality, being able to use a native lens with it. So this was shot on the Sony camera using a Sony 28 to 60mm lens, and this is at 28, and then being able to zoom in that much and see that quality in the image is great. But obviously underwater you have the ability to zoom the lens, so you can deal with a really great range of subjects. And anyone who's shot a lens like the Tacina 10-17 underwater knows how valuable that zoom is just in standard wide angle reef scenes, because it allows you to play with your foreground and background relative sizes. If your background is too big, you zoom out and get closer to the foreground subject, and your background appears then smaller because of the lens being zoomed out. If you want that background feature to be bigger in your composition, you just back slightly away from the foreground subject and zoom the lens in, and what that does is you end up with the foreground subject still the same size, but that background subject has grown in the composition. And I'm really looking forward to taking this lens to the Red Sea. I suspect it will be on my camera every dive, and for the dives when I don't want to use it, it'll be on someone else's camera. So I think it's going to do every dive in the Red Sea, this lens, because it's really exciting to be able to try it. Right, that's that. I'm away for a few weeks now, and I've got some work planned for when I get back. So I'm not sure how much image processing I'm going to get done over the next few months, but I am going to be shooting a lot and working on projects. So when I do get back on here, hopefully I'll have some really great images to share with you. So thank you for watching, and speak again soon. Bye.